Okay, I hope you can see my agenda for what we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to look at adult education in Illinois very briefly. We're going to talk about the roles libraries can play in the high school equivalency certification process. We're going to look at the iPathways student learning system. We're going to wrap it up with how to become an iPathways library. But before I really kind of jump in there, I'd like to kind of know what your questions are. So if you can type in the chat feature, what are you looking for? What brought you here today? And I have an Amy as well. Looks like we have one more person. So hi, Amy. I hope you can hear us. We're just getting started. And I'm asking that you share your, burning question where you want to start with today's conversation. What kind of access to tests, and is this popular among users? Those are great questions. You want to see if your users, your patrons, are going to be interested in using this and what that looks like. That's awesome. I can cover that. Amy, I hope you can hear us. Do you have any particular questions you'd like to make sure I address? Cost. And okay, we can definitely talk about that. In the call with us, I have Veranda Pitchford and Amanda. Amanda, I'm not going to try your name because I'm probably going to hack it up, and I apologize for that. Uh,
Pistachio.
Masaccio, is that what it is?
Yep.
Oh
Yep.
my God.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. They are from Rails, and I will let them kind of talk about the overarching Rails planning and how that will work as we get towards the end. I promise not to take up too much of your time. So,
Okay. So, do you want me to go ahead, Kathy? Or
sure, go ahead. Let them know. Yeah, it'd be wonderful.
hello. This is Veranda Pitchford. Amanda and I work on group purchases for Rails members. What we try to do is bring things that you may not have seen before, and also things that are affordable for lots of different libraries. And what we're psyched about today is this particular opportunity meets both of those. We are psyched because what we're finding, and the way we even met Kathy, is because she is known not just around the state, but nationally as an adult education expert. And I was just interested in the role libraries could play in supporting communities as a partner in education. And she was extremely helpful with us finding out more about that, because this is a great role to support not only education, but workforce development in the community. One thing, so you can, she'll be a great resource now and after this webinar. And if you become engaged with the product, definitely even ways to market it to folks, because she's worked with so many adult education students. And again, what we mean by adult education are those seeking high school proficiency. One thing I want to share with you about the product is we are one of a very few library groups who are using this in the country. Hopefully, when I say few, I mean the first library groups using it in the country, because this is, as I said before, an important role for libraries to play. This product does not authenticate against the ILS system, meaning there are other ways that you would have to verify your patrons to make sure they're your users to issue them a seat in the system. And I can work with you on that, because there is another library using it. But I just wanted to give you that up front, and I'm happy to talk with you more about it. This is also a great opportunity, this product, to partner if there's a local community college or local businesses where there are folks who may need a high school certification as well. This is a great way to partner with them and to support those local businesses in your community. As you know, Rails always wants our library members to be rock stars. So with that, and again, as Kathy said, feel free to use the chat box to share what questions you have about adult education. And we'd love to hear more even about if there are patrons coming to your library, looking for adult ed resources. And, it seems like and we have a small group today, which is good because we can
Right.
really work together to get your questions answered. So feel free to put not just answers to those questions, but any questions you have. Amanda and I are backing Kathy up so we can work with her to make sure your questions get answered today. Okay? So take it away, Kathy. And thank you guys for joining us if I didn't say that already. Thank you. And I'll put my email in the box so you could follow up with us, okay? I promise I'm done talking now.
That's great. The partnership we have with Rails, because the question is cost, is that you can buy through Rails a small group of seats or a large group, depending on your needs. Our seats are reusable, which means once a student has completed their participation within your system, they've come in, they've checked out access to iPathways, you've given them access after a certain time, they have either completed their participation with it or they have returned it like another digital product, meaning they're done accessing it. That opens back up to another student. So this revolving seats allows it to be very affordable and cost effective. Now, one of you had mentioned that your local community college has used iPathways in the past. All of the local community colleges have access to iPathways at no cost to them because the Illinois Community College Board has done similar to Rails with and funding for their audience. So the ability for all of your users to use iPathways at a local community college could be available. Now, colleges are, again, as struggling as everybody else is with our budget impasse. Some colleges have wait lists waiting for students to, have spots in their program. Other community colleges have different requirements for participation. It really depends on which one is in your area. So this could be a tool that the libraries have available to them to help students who are waitlisted for programs to be doing something on their own time. I know in the area that I live in, which is the middle of the state, the community college that provided the adult education services has discontinued their adult education program. So we have a 3,000 square mile radius with no adult education programs that are funded by the state. So libraries have this unique role because our patrons are coming to you and they are going to ask for resources. Prior to my showing you our system and what that looks like, I do want to show you a couple of things very briefly. I'm going to close that. For many of you, after the 2014 GED test and all of that changed, you began putting new materials on your shelf. Now, I'm going to put some links here in the chat feature, and I want you to kind of follow up with these as you look for materials. In the state of Illinois, there are 3 different high school equivalency tests that students can participate in and prepare for and take. Okay? What's very interesting is that they're all have the core similar criteria. But there are a lot of materials out there that publishers are selling and promoting. And I think it's very important you know where to find material that has been vetted by each test so that you know what to put on your shelves. On these links that I have, that I've shared in the chat feature, are the links for the task test, the HiSET test, and the GED test. And these are the preparation materials that are vetted, which means the test vendor has looked through the content in a very rigorous process and ensured that the material presented for the student covers the content on these tests. It's very important that if you're putting materials on your shelf, that you have something on these lists. This is for the task test, and as you can see, iPathways is approved, as with other materials as well. If you come over to the GED test, as you can see as we scroll through here, the iPathways is approved. And then as I come over to the high set test, you will see we have Aztec, some of the same high set prep, KET, but you will also see iPathways. What's important about this is iPathways is vetted for all three tests, and all three tests are available in Illinois. So as a library, you don't have to buy material for the task, material for the high set, and material for the GED, because we cover all three of those. If you did a comparison, what you would see is there are very few products on the market right now that are vetted by all three tests. So that's a critical piece to understand, because that way when you're talking about cost, you're buying one material for all three tests. And if you're looking for additional materials that you'd like to have at your library, please look at what's listed on these websites to make sure that your patrons have access to relevant material for that test. There's a lot of stuff out there right now, and not all of it has gone through the rigorous process of being vetted. Now, I would really like to get my hands in and show you iPathways and talk about that, but before I do, I'd like to hear what questions and concerns you have. Okay, I'm not seeing anything, but feel free to type that as we go forward so that I can make sure that I address those, okay? Again, those links are available to you to review the information and materials that are out there. Now let me tell you about iPathways. Oh, Julian, that's a great question. Do I have students that prefer one test over another? You know, the tests all are built on the college and career readiness standards. I don't think there's a preference from one over the other. I know that the GED test is strictly computer based. It's not online, it's computer based. And that distinction is very important because a student has to go to an official testing center for the high set, the task, or the GED. So they are computer based. The high set, however, offers a pen and paper version. So some of the students who may not be comfortable with technology may prefer the high set because it is pen and paper. Between any of that, there's really not a lot of difference. There is some difference in cost, but not that much. So I don't have a recommendation for which test is over the other one. At the end of the webinar, I will show you how students can find a testing center local to their area, and that will help them figure out which test they're preparing for. Our curriculum is based on the college and career readiness standards as well. So the goal is that a student can complete the preparatory material, take the test, and not only pass the test, but if they were to take a Compass test for entrance into a community college program, it is our hope that they would pass out of the 090 developmental ed courses. We have a very rigorous curriculum. That was a great question. So one of the things I want you to look at is that this is your student center. This is what the student is going to see. I'm going to change my screen size for just a minute, because if your student's only access to the internet is a cell phone outside of the library use, I want to show you that we are responsibly designed. And this means that the screen will change to an appropriate size and the student is able to participate in learning. They will have to scroll a little bit, but everything sizes correctly. They have access to all the resources to their home and everything. And again, maybe they're going to use a tablet device, and again, it sizes correctly. And then if we were going to go to, again, a full screen size. Now, when a student has been given access to iPathways, they will have access to all of the curriculum. That is basic math, basic writing, consumer education, language arts, math, science, and social studies. You can even broaden the user base for this for some of your students who are home for the summer and their parents want them to stay engaged in some kind of academic activity. They can also have this. It's to your discretion who you give access to, but it does provide a great depth of instruction. I'd like to show you one of the content areas so you can see what the learner experience is like. Do you have any preference of what you'd like to see? Okay, so math. Okay, I'll start with basic math. Our basic math, oh, for heaven's sakes, it times out. When a student doesn't use this, it times out so that it never allows somebody else to log in under that student's name. So it'll come right back in. Okay, I'm going to come to math. Now, what happens when the student comes into math is they have access to this curriculum. What they will see is work that they've started in lessons, work they've completed, and then this will allow them to track their progress. I'm going to start with one of my favorite math lessons, mean, median, mode, and range. And I like this. It's a really good example of what our curriculum looks like. Not only are we responsive, but we are 508 compliant. Actually, we exceed those standards whenever possible. And that's really important. I think it was University of South Carolina, USC, I believe, recently had to take down all of their videos that they had posted for learners across the country because they were not accessible. Accessibility is a huge issue, and we meet those accessibility standards. So when they come in, the student has an introduction. In this case, it's a very visual chart of what the variation, difference, mean, median, mode, and range. We start with key terms, so students building up an academic vocabulary. We provide direct instruction for a specific area. It's visual, it's clean and easy to read, it's not cluttered with a lot of information. It's applicable to their GED test or their task or their HiSET. Again, we try to combine visual with the text. And the student just scrolls through the pages as they get there. They have instant feedback answers. Okay. So I've answered the questions. The feedback provides me the correct answer. So the student can engage in that and participate in these question and answers. And they would have another question and they would have another set of numbers to work with. When they get done with that, they can go to the next page. Where appropriate, we have video pieces. I'm going to play just a minute of this for you so you can see what it looks like.
When working with a lot of data, we have some words like mean, median, mode, and range that help us to describe the entire group. We're going to be looking at a few of these right now. We are going to look at a small collection of data points and analyze the mean, median, mode, and range of these values. Let's say that for 5 days in the summer, you were asked to record the temperature each day. And on Saturday, the high temperature was 88. On Sunday, the high temperature was 91.
Okay, I'm going to pause that there. So we have videos in many of the places and audio pieces in many of the places. and it's transcribed, which means not only does the student actually is able to hear it, but they can read along with it and they can watch the video. But if you are a hearing impaired learner, you can participate in what is happening because it has been transcribed for you. So not only have we done the accessibility to the best of our ability, which I'm really impressed with our team, but we've got it ready for the students so they can support their learning. So we're going to keep going through this curriculum, and we have a review. So it was a very succinct lesson, very direct on a specific content area, and it has a lot of interaction, and it has a video piece. At the end of each lesson, there is a learning check where the student can practice the skills that they've earned in this lesson. They will submit this. It will not let me submit because I missed a question. So I'm going to go answer that, and now I'm going to submit again. What this now does is it gives me the question, the answer, and the feedback. So now I can check my learning. If I didn't do well on this test, I'm going to scroll to the bottom of the page where I've gone through my answers, and I'm going to be able to go back and redo this again. Okay? It allows me to redo this. We have a test bank where the questions are reorganized and redone based on the students' answers so that they can, take another test as soon as they're done with this one again. So it allows them to do that. I'm going to show you one more lesson in math. I'm going to scroll down to ratios and proportions, and I'm picking these specifically because these skill sets are on all three tests. So we start introduction and key terms. It is the same concept. There's only 8 pages in this lesson, so again, it's very succinct. It's also very visual. We try to use images to represent what a ratio of right here, red to blue, the ratio of green to blue, and so forth. We've compared the dogs to cats and shown you what that ratio looks like as a fraction. So again, we're using a lot of visual images and a lot of text-based instruction to tie in the concepts a student needs to have. There are places to interact with, and the student can answer the question. So click on the following words for the more information about the obesity chart. 27% of women are obese compared to 28% of men, and here's the ratio. So again, we're kind of building our skill sets within that. So it's a very, very easy experience for the students. The lessons are short, succinct, direct, and interactive. The system itself is easy to navigate. The student can go back to their home page and monitor their progress. They can view their portfolio if they ever want to go back and see what they did on a lesson, and again, see what they've done. And they can check when they submitted something and what their score was. This is all at the fingertips of the student. Because libraries will not have teachers, that is an option you have if you have a library-based program that you could run it with a teacher. If you have volunteers, you could have it set up with a volunteer teacher. But most of you will be using this as an independent tool for your students. So there's no teacher for the student. It would be what we call a robo teacher, automatically assigned. So once you get the student registered in the system and access to the system, it's very user-friendly from that point forward. Now, I want to pause, and first thing I want to know what you think about what you've seen, whether it's the links to the various testing centers or the iPathways student demo What do you think about what you've seen? How do you feel your patrons would respond to this if they have access to it, since it does start at a very basic level and does work them through step by step? Julian, I think you're right. They were going to use it because they don't have access a lot of options, quite possibly. So I think once patrons know that this is a tool that's available to them, it's kind of like if you build it, will they come? And I absolutely believe they will come. I think our revolving seat price makes it very, very doable for libraries to serve the maximum number of patrons at the best cost ever. A little partial to that, but I think that's a true statement. Amy, what do you think? Will this be something your patrons might use? And while Amy's kind of thinking about that response, let me show you a few more of the features that are available to your students. Okay, so that's a really good point, Amy, about whether patrons would take advantage of it. That ties to a marketing message that a local library would put out to get students interested in it. I think that you might have the interest. And where are you from, Amy? Um, oh, yeah, yes. Carthage, Carl Sandburg. I live in Bushnell. Yes, Carl Sandburg College is our community college district. And right now, Carl Sandburg College has suspended their adult education program, so there are no services in our area. So, do I think that it is incredibly necessary in our area? Absolutely, because I am unaware of any other funded adult education program where people can actually earn their prepare for their high school equivalency. I know in Bushnell, our local city city clerk purchased a couple of vouchers to test it out to see if students would use it, and they went just like that. They were almost immediately gone because people have no access to resources with that. So yes, I do think with a marketing message, people would use it. Julian, where are you from? And you might have mentioned it earlier. Okay. And while oh, okay. There is a huge need also in your area because you would be, if I'm correct, McHenry County and College of Lake County. Are those in your area? Am I even okay? Very, very good programs. They are very big. Well, College of Lake County is a huge user of iPathways, but they have more students than we can actually feasibly serve in 1 year in the state of Illinois. So I think you have a large population that would be open to this particular resource. I'm going to show you a couple of other student resources for you to see how much depth is provided in the curriculum. So under resources, we have a glossary. That's just the key terms we've used in ours. But what I really like about this is our resource links. So for every content area that we have, like sciences inquiry, here is the link that we've used in that particular area So it gives our students a wealth of other resources at their fingertips, and it allows them to kind of even develop more knowledge about a certain area. And it's organized by content of what's covered. We have a student worker every 3 months go through absolutely every link in iPathways to make sure they're still accurate and make sure they still work. So we have the resources there. We have study guides for 3 of the content areas. I'm hoping to do more study guides over the summer, but we have study guides that will help students. Perhaps they can print them at the local library, but these study guides will support what the student has learned in that content area. I'll open one. So this is the highlight of Social Studies Unit 2, Lesson 1. And we boiled down the lesson to a 1-page highlight, or 1 to 2 pages, depending on where we are with it. So these are the highlights of things that they should know. This is a little more than one, it's a 2-page. There's a little reflection to pull all the ideas together, a place for students to write notes, and then a word puzzle of some kind. So there are some interactive pieces that fully support what the student is doing. And we also have printable worksheets that students can access. And they can look at what the essays are going to look like, various worksheets for drill and practice. I'm not much of a drill and practice person, but we have requests from students to add these worksheets, so we have continued to add those. So this is kind of our package that we provide for the student, and everything is here. And one of the best parts of this that I cannot understate is up here in our corner is a support center. So the students or patrons who access iPathways are able to come here and they can get any kind of tech help that they need. If they have forgotten their password, if their smartphone is not letting them access the system, if their computer is old or whatever it is, we handle the tech issues so that the student can be engaged in learning. This is not something that you guys have to worry about. You don't have to troubleshoot for students. We do that for you. There are also brief tutorials that will show you how to do this. They're little small, 2 to 3 minute videos. A frequently asked questions section that tells them a little bit more about it. They can email a form or call us. Either way, we have a live support desk Monday through Thursday from 8 in the morning till 8 in the evening, on Friday from 8 in the morning till 6, and on Saturdays and Sundays. So your students and patrons will never have a wait time for us to get back to them to say, okay, how can we help you? And that means your staff is not spending their time troubleshooting this technology. We do that. Okay. I think I've shown you our system, our features. I've looked at how students can get help. We talked very briefly about the different types of tests that are in Illinois and to make sure that you're using approved materials. And it just means that what the materials cover is what the student needs to know to pass those different tests and to be college and career ready. It's also really important for you guys to be aware of these 3 programs, the HiSET, the GED, and the task test, because my mission in life is to shut down every predatory site out there that takes advantage of our vulnerable population by pretending to offer them a GED and it's not accredited. So if anything, please walk away knowing those websites and finding the vetted, correct, accredited testing centers for our students and help them not get taken advantage of by a predatory company. With that said, I'm going to come back to Veranda and Amanda to see what questions you guys have, how you'd like to wrap this up, or what information you'd like to share.
Thank you. Again, we want to be sure we answer any questions you have, but if you're anything like me, I always have questions after things are over and I'm driving home. When you have a few minutes to think about it. As Kathy mentioned, the minimum purchase for this is 5 reusable seats, and those seats are priced at $50 a seat. So a minimum purchase for a library would be $250. And you are welcome to try that out to just test it in your community. Kathy's also willing to work with you on marketing as well. And not in this area, we haven't done it, but for those libraries, once y'all get up and running, if you decide to go forward with this, maybe we'll do some workshops with our training department around meeting the needs of adult learners and incorporating these iPathway resources. Maybe that's something we could think about, as it'll be a critical mass of libraries who are using it. If you want to have questions, you can, I know Amanda has just emailed you, so you know everybody knows to say Amanda's name now because she's been emailing so much. So let us know if you have questions. No pressure. Pricing can go through Rails. And if anybody has any general questions around adult ed and libraries, we have a few extra minutes. So Kathy, you wouldn't mind answering those, would you?
Absolutely, be glad to. And
Okay.
Absolutely be glad to. And if you have any Rails questions, we can take the time for that as well. This is your time to ask us whatever you need.
I'm curious what the Rails questions are going to be. We don't know if we want to, we're scared. Well, I'm scared. I don't know if Amanda's scared. So we'll just give it a few more minutes for questions. I mean, there's no harm or shame in wrapping up a little early, in my opinion. I call it a gift 15 minutes, which is a lot in this day and age.
Yes.
I put if you scroll up in the chat for this, my email is there. And of course, both Amanda and I can be found on the Rails website. And you can always ask us any questions. Oh, did a question. I don't have questions right now, but thank you so much for the information. Oh, thank you. What if this said something terrible about us, Amanda? I would, and I read it out loud. I probably shouldn't. What if it said, "You people are ridiculous"? Okay, here, Amy has a real question. Thank you, Julian, first of all. So is it $50 per reusable seat per year? That is correct. But there is, Amy, there is a minimum purchase from Rails of 5 seats. So yes, the seat, as you renew it annually, whatever your annual anniversary is, that seat becomes available again the following year and reusable. I know the trick here is that for both of Kathy's organization and Rails has this problem of being nonprofits.
Right.
So so it's a great product at a low price because it's not usually sold to libraries. It's usually sold to their partner agencies of community colleges, but we're able to make it available to you through this partnership. So it does seem too good to be true, to me at least. But yes, so $50 per reusable seat. And this information is on our website, too, under deals and discounts on the Rails website. Can you put that link in there? And you'll see other Rails group purchases there as well, a whole range of them, from the usual suspects like EBSCO and Gale to awesome, I mean, not that those aren't awesome, but to awesome ones like iPathways as well. It's just that those are ones people see all the time. Any other questions?
Amanda, can you put that link in the chat feature? Because there it is. Thank you so much. I think, and comparatively, the one thing I will say about our cost. Amanda, what happens is the student is archived. There's no complicated process for this. We're trying to be as flexible and user-friendly as you need us to be. So what my suggestion is, and we can work through whatever works in your library. So let's pretend a student comes in and they check out access to iPathways. You would follow the same concept of any other material you check out. They need to come back in or communicate with you in about 2 weeks or a month or whatever your checkout period is, and then say, yes, I'm continuing to use it. And if they don't come back in, we just archive the student, and then you have it for another student. It's very user friendly. And that support system that I mentioned earlier, we have people on staff too. If you ever call up and say, hey, I forgot how to archive a student, or you email it in, or whatever works in your world, we'll guide you through it step by step every time. So you're never doing this alone.
So,
My
did
suggestion is
you
to, go ahead.
did you talk? Maybe I missed it. Talk about how that administrative portal, what libraries have access to via the administrative portal.
I did not. What you have access to, Amy, I showed you the student center because everyone wants to see what their patrons are going to have access to. As a library administrator, you have different features. I can show you a couple of them very quickly right now, and then what will happen is when and if you decide this is something for you, then we work with you individually through a phone call with our support team, or perhaps with a webinar that might fit your time frame. So you're never implementing this alone. You've got a lot of support.
You, Kathy. And while you log in, I was just going to say what Kathy was mentioning is it's recommended, and you want to do what works for you, is that you make the iPathways seat the same checkout period as you have for your library. So for eRead Illinois, our checkout period is 21 days. So at 21 days, the library administrator would need to go in and either, if that person has expressed interest in continuing on, renew that seat like you would renew another title, or make that seat. And maybe you want to send a note saying, are you still, 3 days before the checkout period is over. But you can have as hands-on, or as, I won't say as hands-on, as automated as you like, but it's you have the opportunity to customize this to work best for your library, depending on the library size and capacity.
Right. And if the student continues, there's nothing you need to do. If the student discontinues, you would archive the student. So it's a very user-friendly process. So as a program administrator, you would add a student. When you log in, you see the student page, and it says create a new student. This is creating a user account. You simply come in and fill out this panel of information, and that's all it takes to get a student assigned everything they need. It's very user friendly. Once a student is in the system, you can see them every time you log in. And right now you can see this list of students of people who are archived. That means they have participated in your program and have completed it. It's a very, very user-friendly system. And again, you're never alone in doing this. This is something we help you with. So that's how you create them. This is how you can see what's happening in your system. And once you've given that student an account, you never have to create another account ever again. So they come back to you 5 years later. We still have their information in here. You don't have to create a new account. You just activate them again. So it's a very user-friendly system from that perspective. Okay.
Other questions or comments that might, in terms of, because I'd be interested if anyone would like to answer this, what ways is your library working with adult learners now, people seeking high school equivalency? I am under the impression from my personal experience that these are folks who are very interested in using libraries
Right.
because they haven't had an opportunity to get a lot of formal education, and it's maybe a safer way at times to have access to education because maybe they have had a bad experience with traditional schools. So it maybe not in the last 9 minutes of this webinar, but I'd be interested in hearing from y'all ways in which your library works with the people who are seeking high school proficiency, or maybe you just know it's a need of theirs and they're reading James Patterson. I'd be curious about that. So if we don't have any questions in the next minute or so, we can just wrap up.
Well, I tell you what, if you feel like your questions have been answered and you have the information you need, feel free to sign off, knowing that we will be very supportive of your questions and your comments and your feedback. And if you still have questions, I'll hang out as long as you need me to. But if you feel like that your questions and answers have been met, you're welcome to sign off and finish your day. I hope this is something that you found interesting. I'd be very interested if you would take a few seconds in that chat feature to kind of put in what you're walking away with. What's the one thing that made this hour worth your time? That would be very helpful to me. And otherwise, I'll hang on for any lingering questions.